Security Unfiltered, episode 6. Man, it's been a long week.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going by too quick. We're already here. I didn't expect this.
Well, this is a good break.
I woke up today thinking that it was Thursday, and then I corrected myself. I thought it was Tuesday. I looked at my phone and I was like, shit. It's Wednesday.
It's hump day.
Man, somewhere in the world, it's hump day.
Well, we can get over the hump with another podcast episode.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a good one for you guys that you guys enjoy listening to. Today, we're going to be talking about leaving a job, kind of how to do it, when to do it, things to look for, um, just everything. We're going to go through it.
Yeah. Quitting time. Quitting
Quitting
time.
time.
It's quitting time.
Hey, you know what? I say that to my coworkers, and they just look at me like I'm crazy because they work nonstop. They're always working, always, and I'm like, dude, after this time, they're no longer paying me to be answering emails, to be logging into anything, to be thinking about work. They're not paying me to do anything. So, no, unless it's a code red, I am not working.
That's a
They're like,
trap.
well, how do you get done with everything? I'm like, I do it within 8 hours, and if I can't do it, guess what? It waits until the next working day.
There is no getting done with everything. There's
I had
always something.
I've had people like reach out to me at crazy hours, be like, "Oh, I need this by tomorrow." I'm like, all right, what time tomorrow? Because now I need to know what time I got to wake up. Like it's insane, man. I think that's key that everyone has to learn that in their career as well. When to say no to the job, when to step away from the laptop, when to put the phone down and say, "Yeah, I'm gonna go spend time with the family. I'm gonna go for a run. I'm gonna go for a jog. I'm gonna go watch TV." Like, that's your time. You didn't sign up to work 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. You know, you signed up for most likely 40 hours a week.
When did you start noticing, or, just personally start realizing that somebody has to be responsible for you and your health, right? And your mental
Yeah.
health. Was it mentors? Was it people coaching you, people above you, or did you just start getting, to that point where you realized that, they'll pretty much run you as far as you would go, so you had to be the one that kind of stepped in and said no more.
Yeah. It kind of took me maybe 3 or 4 years to get there. Um, I was, man, I started my career and I was doing way over 40 like consistently. Um and I never really understood why I was tired or anything, right? I kind of like overlooked it. I just figured like, oh yeah, I'm doing a lot. Like that's why I'm tired. That's why I'm so exhausted and everything. Um Went to a few different places and the work pace was a bit different. It was much slower than what I was used to, and so that didn't really jive with who I am as a person or how I work or anything. And so I ended up going somewhere else that had a much faster work pace. And I mean, just the environment will drive you straight into the ground. I mean, the work is never ending. Like, I'm sure, all of our listeners and us, definitely us, the work is never ending. Like we can always find something to do. There is always something to do. But it's like at this other place, it wasn't like we can find something for you to do. It was like, no, here you go. It was like, well, I'm already at 40. This would take me to 50. Yeah, 50. You're not doing enough. Here's another 10 hours a week on top of that. So now you're at 60. And then when you get used to 60, guess what? Here's 70. And you get used to 70, here's 80. And before you know it, I was doing 80 hours a week and like I was like I used to have hair, and like literally, like I say it as a joke, and it's funny as hell. But I used to have hair, and then I started this job, and I started losing my hair because I was so fucking stressed out because I was working nonstop.
Mm.
I mean, I was working so much that my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, like she would just be like, "Hey, like, when do you think that we could spend some time together?" And I'm like, "We're hanging out right now." She's like, "No, no, no. Like, I'm on my laptop because you're doing work. This is like the fourth day this week that you've done this, and it's like, what's going on here? You're working too much." And it wasn't until she said that to me that I kind of started to connect the dots as to like why I was so stressed, and why when I went to the doctor I had like that in between level of blood pressure, right? Where it's like not quite normal, it's not quite high, but it's something we need to think about. And yeah, it took all that. It took me losing my hair, man, for for me to realize I can't be working like that.
That
Speechless.
I'm speechless. That's that's horrible, man.
And
You,
you know what? You know the backstory. You actually know the backstory behind that. When I hit 80 hours, I was told I wasn't doing enough. And that's when I realized I had to leave.
yeah.
Because I
Unfortunately,
knew 90 wouldn't be enough. And I knew 100 wouldn't be enough. And if I'm working 100 hours a week, guess what I'm not doing? I'm not spending time on myself. I'm not spending time on my hobbies. I'm not spending time on the other areas that maybe I want to grow in, or just not doing shit. Like, guess what? Maybe I'm going to do nothing with my extra 60 hours that week. Like, it was just
I mean,
crazy.
it's so, you know, it's we don't talk about it as much, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
you have people that you talk to and buddies and people that you go out and have drinks with, and you guys kind of talk about what's happening at the job, and sometimes it's frustrating, but it mostly just bogs down to you know, the day-to-day stuff that kind of, drives you up the wall, right? The incidents,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But you never really talk about how much energy and how much hours people put in, right? We don't talk about that as much. So to hear, I mean, like, to hear you kind of frame it, and it's weird because sometimes we pick and choose what it is that's kind of motivating us. So, and it's different for everybody, right? It can be like, oh man, I need to get out of debt, so I'm gonna get all the overtime I can get, right? And that's if you're fortunate enough to be in an hourly
Yeah.
situation, right, where that 60, 70 hours actually has some return.
Man.
But once you become salary, right, and exempt, and you know you're putting in at 50, 60, 70 hours, well, the organization is looking at you as an asset. They're looking at you as return on an asset. And so the more you give them, obviously the better, right? It helps solidify your role a little bit. And that's where you have to pick and choose your battles, right? Especially once you first start out in a particular role or organization, right? Yeah, I mean, you're excited. You don't mind putting in that extra time because you want to learn the environment. You want to, add value. You want to, get some of the things fixed that you can, especially that hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But then you see that it never stops, it never ends. So you have to be the one to figure out when to turn it off. And it's kind of difficult when you have so many things that you're told, especially in America, USA, capitalist society, right? Where it's like a lot of your success is dictated by, your job title, you moving up in a particular role, um, and it can be stressful because there are notions of what makes you the breadwinner, right? And that's
Right.
that get that lunch pail and go ahead and do that work. And a lot of times even the older generation would say, hey, suck it up, son. This is what we do, right? uh
Yeah.
you know as men, you have to bear the brunt of this stress and this anxiety and this workload. and we kind of put ourselves in a situation, and in the end you realize that it's not really benefiting you or your friends or or your family, right? It's just perpetuating this idea that you're holding up the economy, you're holding up what it means to be successful. And it may not be as clear cut as that. There just may be pieces of it, but yeah. And this, when you start realizing that sometimes you have to leave a position that's putting you in that tough situation where you have to make that choice, and then you start questioning, who am I as a person? Am I living up to what this society, this culture is saying that I need to do in order to be successful? And then you realize that you start having issues with your health. They start to show up, right? Whether it's high blood
Right.
pressure, whether it's losing your hair, whether it's heart
Gaining
palpitations.
weight. I
Yeah,
mean,
and you deal with it in different ways. And so it's really unfortunate. And so I guess the main point of this episode is to really just talk about how not to get to the extremes in certain areas, and where you just have to make a decision, right? Like, there's other opportunities out here, so sometimes you have to go.
yeah, I think it starts with a mentality. It it really does, and I think that this one thought really um changed. I think two thoughts really changed everything for me. The one thought was I'm going to work this 70, 80 hours a week, or whatever it is, right? And I'm not going to get a higher bonus for it. I'm not going to get promoted. I'm barely going to get a raise. They're going to give me a 3% raise at best just to keep up with inflation, which is nothing. Which it does statistically, it doesn't even keep up with inflation anymore. So let's just get that out of the water, right? The 3% is kind of just what they typically do. And this is the case for most companies. So what am I working harder for? Right? Like, am I trying to get promoted internally? Because honestly, I could go somewhere else, get the jump, and probably have a more comfortable work life. So then what am I doing it for? And then the other thought that everyone that I'm mentoring, I tell this to, there are a lot of young guys, and they you know, they have this mentality that they're very loyal to a company, like just to a company or to that manager. Loyalty is fine and all, right? But I always try to go back to this one thought. If you drop dead at your desk doing your job on Monday, how long do you think it'll be before the company starts re-interviewing for your role? Like, just how long do you think it'll be? It's not a ding on the company, because guess what? The company needs to fill that role. They need to fill that gap, right? But how long do you think it'll be until someone else is sitting in that seat? And whatever that number might be, I mean, every number for me personally, just for me personally, every number that I came up with in my head wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. So, because like then for me, you're equating that 80 hours to, eventually dying with this company. And is it worth it? I mean, am I even going to leave an impact on this company? Most likely not. If I'm not the CEO, I'm not going to leave an impact. No one's going to know my name. No one's going to care. I might even have some of the biggest projects in the entire company that gets rolled up to the CEO of the company, and the CEO for 3 months knows my name. For 3 months they know my name. And after that, it's, nothing really. If you die, they'll send some flowers to your funeral, and that's it. And that's my mentality. That's where I start with it, and maybe that's maybe that's a lot of dysfunction on my end. I don't know, but I try to frame things in that perspective when I'm thinking of leaving, or when I have loyalty conflicts in my own head, or when I'm mentoring someone and they have a lot of loyalty conflicts in their head, because it's like, well, this guy gave me my first job out of college. He gave me my shot. He gave me my chance. Absolutely, man. That's difficult. But you know what? When I left my first job out of college and I talked to the VP that gave me the chance, right? That no one else gave me the chance. When I talked to that guy, he said, "Yeah, it sucks to lose you. Like, you're a huge asset to this company, but I'm really, really excited for where your career is going." And if he would have said anything else, if he would have said anything different, if he would have made it difficult for me, I wouldn't have talked to him again. But because he handled it that way, I respected him so much more. I knew that he was always looking out for me no matter what. He was always looking out for my best interests, and you're not going to find that everywhere.
Yeah. I think that that kind of encompasses like what's the first main issue that can cause people to leave, which is like poor company culture or incompatible company
Oh
culture.
man, yeah,
You don't. So if you don't see that culture there, right, that kind of makes it worth it, where you see that that work leads to something, right? Back in the day, it used to be that you can stay somewhere 20, 25, 30 years. You were trying to get a pension, you were trying to get a gold watch,
yeah,
and that died right around the time I got into IT. It became all about contracting, right?
mm-hmm,
Contracting. And so I took advantage of that because it was like, well, if this is what they're doing, I'm okay with that. I just want the work. I want the experience. So I'll take a contract for 4 months, and then I'll take one for 8 months. And there'll be situations where they say, "Hey, the project is still going to go, but we're going to try to extend you," and you can make a decision like, "Kind of learned what I was going to learn here, so I'm looking to do something else." Honestly,
yeah,
um, but by the time I got into management, I realized that, and it's you go always when you got somebody good and they leave. Oh man, of course you're not gonna be 100% happy that they left. That's
right.
just human nature. Like you
It
got
sucks.
somebody that you probably chatted with, joked with, hung out with, and grabbed lunch with, and they're helping you do things. But I always looked at it as I want the measurement of my success to be how many people I can graduate into a better position.
Mm,
I didn't think or ever want it to be that, hey, let's rock out here for 10 years. No, I'm like, can you imagine having people work for you and you coach them and mentor them and help them along in their career? Then they go other places and then they're successful there. It's like you're a factory, right? You're like a university at that point. So I used to
yeah,
be like, when people, I would help people get trained up really quick and get enough of a perspective that they can make a jump, right? So, hire a guy for 70K. Next thing I know, he's talking about, I got 115K offer on the table. I'm like, damn, man, you got to take it. Sucks that we're going to lose you. But the more people I have that kind of leave, and then they can kind of put that positivity back out in the world, the better for me, right? And because the company is going to be there, they who knows what they value, right? They
right.
value getting in there and doing that work, right? But in terms of your character, your values, your principles, your family, your health, all of those are secondary, right? If they're even, in the top five for what an organization really values out of its human capital, right? Because that's what they refer to it as a lot of times.
Yeah,
And it's a lot of money that goes into, whether or not, you got the right people in there. And so you have to realize that, I mean, it's a partnership. It's not the organization is hiring you and doing you a favor. You guys are partners. You're working to help the organization produce something that the world wants or the world needs. So it shouldn't be a situation in which you feel as though that you're beholden to an organization, right? Because they gave you an opportunity. You can always feel grateful, and you should. You should always be appreciative of your situation. But you shouldn't feel as though that you have to allow for yourself to decompose in any fashion,
yeah,
if you perform your role, right? If you go in, you do your 40 hours and you perform, then you're doing your job. But you shouldn't feel as though that you have to do 60, 70, 80 hours regularly, right? There may be periods where you get ramp up period activities, right?
of course.
So you might have to do that, right? So the first time you do 60 hours, don't say, I'm out of this place. I can't believe they had me
Yeah,
doing 60. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that when a company culture starts to set an expectation and sometimes they don't say it outright, but they'll make comments, right?
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, that's all you're doing?" Or, you know, "List out all your activities for me, please." And then they'll go through all your activities and say, "Well, there's no way you can do this in 40 hours." And it's
Dude.
like, "Well, what does that tell you?"
Yeah.
And very rarely do they actually come back and say, "Let's get some more people in here to help." Right?
I don't know
Um,
why that is such a sticking point. It At every company I've ever been at, it always seems like headcount is like the biggest issue that they have the hardest time addressing.
yeah,
I don't understand that. I really don't. I mean, like, it's one thing finding talent, okay? Like, I guess finding talent is, pretty difficult, right? But I mean, it's like shit. I need four more people on this team. Like, I'm doing 80 hours a week. I need four more people. Like, there's there is no in between. And the reason why I need four more people is because guess what? I'm on a team of five, and we're all doing 80 hours a week.
yeah.
So,
And
you know,
they're looking at that as good return,
yeah. They're
you
like, well,
know?
these guys are willing to do the 80, so why would we get four to do
Exactly.
that with that same amount of work? Why would we waste the $400,000 or whatever it is? I mean, it'll cost more than that with benefits and everything else like that.
So
It's
there are
yeah.
different numbers out there that say, like, to replace somebody, it usually costs 2.5 times their salary. So
Really?
whatever you
Hmm.
yeah, so whatever you make a year, it's probably going to cost your employer up to 2.5 times to replace you, right? Because they also have to market a position, right? They lose all that knowledge that you've gained. They have to ramp somebody up. They have
Mm.
to onboard that person. Um, and it can take years, especially if you've been somewhere 4, 5, 6 years. Well, how long do you think it's going to take to get somebody to the same
Ooh,
productivity level as somebody who's been in it, right? And they've been doing the
man.
60, 70 hours. They know the shortcuts, they know the contacts, they know who to go to in order to get XYZ done. So you would think that once that knowledge and that accumulation of value starts happening, you would think like they're planting a seed and they're watching the tree grow. Right?
Yeah,
But no, I mean, sometimes they won't water you at all. They'll just watch the money come falling off of that tree and just say, "Hey, it's supposed to do that." And
man.
that's when you have to say, "Well, hey, like I said, I have a child. My child, I'm not spending enough time with them because I'm so busy trying to meet this idea of success for you all by working like this and setting an example as well, right? You want to set an example sometimes for your children that working hard because if you're lucky enough, you're going to get uh, fair compensation, right? So if you
Right.
get fair compensation and then you're able to start accumulating things that you need or your family needs or things that make them happy, you start to fall in that situation in which you believe that, well, this is worth it because it's leading to these things. And so it's a balancing game, right? And so the problem ends up happening, or the problem that happens a lot of times is that people get scared, right, of what that change could mean because you're changing, right? And unless you go through that contracting type of situation, some people get a full-time job and then that first full-time job they're in that for 6 years. And then if they lose that job and then they're out for a year and a half,
Oh,
well,
man.
I mean, you're talking about a shock to the system. I've worked with people who were deathly afraid of the whole idea of getting another job and going through that process, even though they were tremendously skilled. Tremendously skilled. I used to say all the time, like, man, I've had 7 contracts in the last 2 years. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? You can go here, you can go there, you can get a bump.
Mm.
And they would be like, no, man, no, no. I'm here, I'm doing it, it's working. I don't want to mess with that. But they would be stressed beyond belief, panic attacks, anxiety attacks. Um, I had a guy, we would have to take walks. Like, he was like, I need a 20-minute walk, man. Let's go. To walk around, we do like a 6 mile, walk. Not a 6 mile, 6 block walk. We can't be going that long, right? Especially if you need it. But yeah, a six.
6 mile walk.
Like, where the hell did
Where the
they
hell did
go?
Derek go?
Said that man is six
He
miles
out on
away.
second 6 mile walk today.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Say he need it, right? But yeah, it happens. I remember I got into smoking cigarettes.
Mm.
Right around like the height of the stress when I first got into, and it was a whole group, right? It would be 6, 7 of us. We'll just all take the
Yeah.
elevator downstairs. We'll go out to the lakefront, right there on the river walk in Chicago. We'll all take out our cigarettes and we'll have a cigarette. And
Yeah.
you get caught up in doing these things, these little, these traditions of stress relief, and then you realize that, damn, well, if I go up the stairs, I having trouble breathing. Well, it's because you're compensating for that stress by punishing your body, and punishing your mind. And so that's when you have to, say, hey, I need to start putting some time to actually, making it so that I have a skill set that's transferable, that's marketable, and that's in demand, right? So that if I ever get into a situation in which I'm not being treated fairly, or that they've baited and switched the position on me and it's just not working, which we can talk about, then you
Oh,
can
I've been
actually,
through that.
yeah,
Oh
because
my
I mean,
god.
so the thing is right, you get into a job, it's not working out, you have to talk to them. You can't just leave. You
Yeah.
have to at least talk to your manager and let them know that you think that things should, go a different way, or this is what you're looking for, right? Because if you're just getting upset and you're not telling anybody, then it's kind of on you, right? Because they can't change or improve anything unless you bring it to them. So always tell your managers, that, hey, this is not working out. You said I was going to be a network engineer, but you have me, fixing people's Outlook mailboxes all day. I'm not trying to do that. So is there going to be any networking activities coming down my way? And if they say, yeah, sure, ask for a time frame. Ask for some of these things so you can track them, because if they never come, you need to start thinking about moving on, because that job is not fulfilling something that you want in your career. You have the right to kind of work the career path that you set for yourself, and if your employer isn't going to help you with that, then you may have to take your skill set somewhere else.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's yeah.
That
You know,
man said
I
some craziness. Yeah, it's not even crazy, but I mean, go ahead. I mean, you've seen it. We both seen it. I think that you've had a lot of experience in being in the position in which you have to kind of make a decision, right?
yeah. Well, you know what? Like, it comes down to my own character, right? So, like, when we're talking about like a bait and switch, I've been bait and switched several times, and nothing frustrates me more than a bait and switch. And for anyone that doesn't know what that is out there, that's when the job description and even the manager and everyone interviewing you describes a role in a way that you like, that you feel like you're a fit for. Let's give you an example. Let's say that you're just, a security analyst or something. You want to get your break into cloud security. So they pitch you they give you a role that's like maybe titled security engineer or something like that. But they're like, "Hey, we're 95% in GCP and we need someone that can help us in GCP. And so this role is going to get you experience in the cloud. You're going to be getting cloud certifications. We're going to be paying for your training." And that's how they sell it. That's in the job description. And so you bite, you go for it. And then when you start the job, there's a ramp up period, of course. Let's say 2, 3 months, you're not doing exactly cloud security. Maybe you don't even have a cloud login or a login to GCP or anything. But 6 months comes by and it's like, hey, when am I going to get access to the cloud? And it never comes. It never happens. You always run into issues. There's always an excuse with you getting access to the cloud or doing anything cloud related. You're not doing the stuff that you went there to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so really, you know, what what you have to do and what I've always done is you need to be 100% honest with your management. If you're guess what? If you're pissed off, go into that meeting and get fired up because you know what? They need to know that it's a problem. they need to know that it is a big issue. There's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I can't show my manager I'm angry," or anything like that. I will I will fucking go off if something like that happens, and I have gone off. Like, if something like that happens, it pisses me off, and so I go off, and I will, and I'll control myself. I'm not gonna drop some F bombs. I'm not gonna be like, "F you," and all this, you know, but I will express my way. I will express myself in a way that clearly shows him that, one, I'm not happy, two, things need to change, and three, if they don't change, he knows for sure I'm leaving. He knows for sure I'm leaving. I'm not going to put up with that. Who am I going to put up? Like, who am I to put up with that?
Yeah.
You know, and so this has happened several times. And this is why earlier in our podcast episodes, we harped on hiring managers not only framing their job descriptions properly, but hiring the right people for the right reasons. I mean, there's places out there that hire people for a role that really won't be doing that role until 2 years in. And they don't tell people that. They don't say anything about it. They don't say, hey, we need you to kind of just sit there for a year. Just sit there for a year. We're going to have the funding in 12 months, but we need to hire you now because we have the funding for to hire you now. They don't say that. They say you're going to be doing this cloud security, that you're going to be doing this big data security, you're going to be doing, this cloud migration, all this stuff from day one. From day one you're doing it because they want the talent, they want the people, to get in there that can actually do that work, and then you get there and it's like, "Oh, man, that project's like 24 months out." I mean, I heard that and I lost my shit one time. I lost my shit. I had to go outside and walk. I think that was the end of my day.
Yeah.
I just went out. I just took a walk. I didn't even tell anyone. I was just like, "Fuck this." Like, I have to leave. I just have to leave. Count it as PTO, count it as sick. I don't care. Like, I don't care. And managers hearing that will probably be like, oh, well, that's irresponsible and this and that. Like, look, the role was very different. I wasn't doing anything.
We're all humans, and people try to sugarcoat it sometimes by framing it as if we are all these automatons, these bots, right? And then we just
Yeah.
program ourselves to just deal with certain things without actually talking about how really how much we're really frustrated by it, how much it really angers us, how
I
much it
mean,
really disappoints us, right? Because I think that's more than anything that I you know it's amazing how much we care about our job, right?
yeah,
And it's different than just going in there and saying that I'm going to be a work slave and I'm just going to sit here at this keyboard and bang out 100 hours a week for you. No, it's like we want to provide value and we want to do things the right way.
yep,
And we want to be communicated with properly. We want transparency. We want honesty. We want to know when things are, taking a turn because we feel as though that, well, we can help prepare and prep so that it actually doesn't go sideways, right? So the thing is that sometimes it's like, hey, and I remember when I was first trying to move out to Colorado, there were 5 different plans I had to move out to Colorado because they evolve, right? You have your perfect plan and then something happens and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to have to change this and I'm going to have to add 4 months onto this and this is going to be the new way. And then,
yep.
it's a different plan. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, it looks like I might be able to work from home. So that's changes. But people will be like, every time I talk to you, the plan is changing. And it's like, well, that's
The
life.
goal is the same.
Yeah, that's life. You have to adjust in order to get to the finish line. Life is going to throw you obstacles, and an organization is going to throw you obstacles. But then the problem is like you don't want to be transparent. You don't want to provide me as much, lead time as possible so that I can mentally cope with this and know
Yeah,
that this isn't just because we're disorganized or we don't have a clue of what we're doing, which is another reason why somebody might leave. If it starts to appear that your organization is has no clue about what it's doing and that a lot of what you guys success comes from is luck, because when you actually look at the day to day, the processes, the procedures, the activities, and you're like, there's no way this place is going to remain successful with this kind of attitude. And then you realize that, well, this is not the kind of place that I thought I was going to work at. I didn't go through all this methodology training and framework training and this formalized education and learning how to do things properly in order to be in the wild wild west. Now that doesn't mean that you don't take the challenge, right? You can always go into an organization and help stabilize it, especially in your area. But if they don't appreciate it, if your stabilization and your order to their chaos actually causes a problem, well,
Yeah.
that's a culture issue, right? And you have to
Yep.
make a determination. Well, do I stay working at this place where most of my good qualities are actually undervalued, devalued? Whereas they just want you to firefight, right? Like, hey, don't care about you creating policies. Don't care about you creating procedures and process maps and business process mapping and modeling. Don't care about any of that. We want you there when that fire goes off, right? When you hear that fire bell, you hop on and you put out that fire. That's your value. Well, then it kind of puts and defeats some of the things that you may be doing in your spare time to get educated, so that you're able to actually do things the appropriate way. And so Joe is completely right. The bait and switches, you know, the roadmaps that are 2 3 years out, and then they don't have a plan for you now, right? So you're just sitting there on your hands. They can become frustrating, and that's when you have to talk to your management and let them know. And if it doesn't work out, put in your 2 week notice.
Yeah.
And that's what the standard should be, just so you guys know, because there are going to be situations in which you may not be able to put in 2 weeks. Make them few and far in between. I'll give you one or two in your career that you might just be like, I
Yeah.
can't do it, right? But 2 weeks is the standard. If you can do 2 weeks, do 2 weeks. Suck it up.
Yeah.
I'm saying the same thing as I said to myself. Don't say it. Don't tell people to suck it up. No, give your 2 weeks, because it can help you in many different ways, not just in terms of helping you get out, but you don't want to burn bridges if you can help it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, um, I think with low mid to lower level roles in security, 2 weeks is like the bare minimum, right? And then sometimes you give like a third week, if they need it, if they request it, of course. Always do your best to leave on good terms. Like,
Yeah,
no matter what, leave on good terms. And uh, I've noticed, at least from my friends that are in upper management, that 2 weeks is not even like in the ballpark for them. They need to give a month minimum.
yeah,
And the higher you go, I mean, I've heard of people of, announcing it 6 months in advance and be like, hey, on this date, I'm no longer going to be here. I'm just letting y'all know. And it was probably decided months before then. So it does depend on your role, but I think for the majority of our audience, 2 weeks is really more than enough. Um, but something I want to add to that, I think when you go into a role, you need to have a goal for that role. You shouldn't be going into a role, just to go into it, right? Like just for more money or anything like that. It's like I'm going into this role because this is an opportunity for me to learn Azure, or it's an opportunity for me to learn big data security or AI or whatever it might be. It's a role that expands your skill sets. That's what's important. And so if you aren't hitting your goal, for instance, for my previous example, you know, if your goal isn't being met with learning cloud security, and they're saying, oh, it's going to be 24 months, it's going to be 36 months before you get that experience, before you even start working on your goal. Well, guess what? In the marketplace of security, right? In 2 to 3 years, you're going to be worth a whole lot more than what they're going to be paying you in 2 to 3 years. A whole lot more, with or without that cloud experience. And if you get the experience sooner, you will be worth a whole lot more. So that is something that you have to keep in mind too. And I think that's something that a lot of people honestly, they overlook it. Um, because they get so comfortable in the job, they get so comfortable in the salary and the benefits and everything. And they're like, oh, 2, 3 years, I'll be making what 9% more than what I am right now, total, like overall, whatever it is, just throwing numbers out there, right? Oh, so that sounds good. And then after that, 2 years of this experience, and maybe I'll go into this field and have a more specialized area. Well, guess what? In cybersecurity, the field is changing rapidly. So I'm not saying in 5 years or 10 years cloud security is going to be obsolete, and we're going to be talking about AI security or something else. We probably will be talking about AI security or something else, but it's not going to be like cloud security is now obsolete. You know,
Yeah.
um, the likelihood of that is very low. But you need to keep in mind and always estimate it out. Like, well, in this year, am I getting skills and experiences that will be worth this X number in X amount of months? And if you aren't going to be getting that number at your current place, then maybe yeah, it would be a good opportunity or a good time to look elsewhere, to pay you what you're worth, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I would recommend everyone like write down at least like five, six, if you can come up with it, of the top, qualities or goals that kind of drive you and your career. Because if they're not being met, then you can go ahead and start doing that calculation about whether or not a move is going to make more sense. And what Joe said, he's completely right. Like there have been a lot of articles that have been posted that's talking about, well, if you leave every 2 to 3 years, you're probably going to end your entire career with 50% more earnings, right, than somebody
Yeah,
who doesn't. So over the course of all your earnings, right, you leaving 2 to 3 years, every 2 to 3 years is going to put you on that, that compounding clip to actually, exceed others who stay around because they're going to give you cost of living increases, right? Two,
yeah,
3% a year. Maybe they have a bonus structure in which you've met all the company's goals. Maybe you can get 10% of your salary, but taxes are going to eat into that. So you're probably only going to see, maybe 60% on a dollar of what that full bonus would actually, meet, because they're going to take 25% out right on the bat. So if you're sticking around, make sure it's because you're getting value and value that you've charted and said that, well, I'm getting experience in the things that, make me feel as though that staying here, even though I might be lowering my, my earning curve, because I'm being fulfilled because, well, the company culture is great. I love the people I work with. I love the management. I love the transparency. I love what we're doing. How many people get to say they actually work for an organization or a company producing something that they can be proud of, right? A lot of us are actually working for organizations a lot of times in which the end product is, let's just call it neutral, right? I'm not going to say an outright, horrible thing, but
right.
let's just say it's neutral, right? So the world would not, it wouldn't
Not like
drain
the world would
tears.
collapse
Yeah, it's not going to.
if
It's
this
not going to.
product wasn't out there.
Exactly, right? So those are the situations in which you have to know. But then there's still the people who are going to be okay with saying that, hey, I just need to find a job that's going to earn me 60K, 70K, and this is my lifestyle, and I'm making more than anybody in my family ever made. So I'm successful. I'm not going to push it. I'm going to give all that extra time and energy to other things. But like I said, that's fine too. But we tend to, try to focus on those who have that want to, I guess, kind of figure out where they max out in their career, right? Uh, you know, do whatever you want, go as high as you want, but there are going to be situations in which you have to make a determination. Does this 2 to 3 year thing make sense? Or do I want to do the 4 or 5 year thing? And a lot of times, Joe, he'll mention it that the companies or the recruiters or the people out here, they actually don't care if you only
They
been
don't care
somewhere a
anymore.
year or 6 months or just a year and a half. They will come and they will poach you. They'll be in your inbox like, hey, I see your anniversary is coming up on LinkedIn. we know that people tend to leave jobs at a higher ratio once they get to their anniversaries because it kicks off that thought process in your head that maybe I should be looking for a change. So they'll actually start ramping up, coming after you when your anniversary comes because the numbers say that people tend to leave around their anniversaries. And so you're going to have an opportunity to change jobs, but then also you have to deal with the whole onboarding process and the interview process and tell me a little bit about yourself and what was your history, right? And it can be so repetitive because you're talking
Mm,
about yourself all the time,
yeah.
right? You have to talk about all those dragon slaying stories, right? And
But
it's just
eventually you get good at it.
uh, you know if you're fortunate enough to be able to turn off your own personal disgust of having to talk about the same thing over and over and over, then yes, you'll get really good at it, right? You have your elevator speech. But some of us, like I'm holding on a thread. Like I'm holding on by a thread. And when it comes to having to talk about all the stuff I done been through, and it's like if we get through this whole process and you be like, well, he wanted 5K more than what we were wanted to pay.
Right.
So we're gonna, go with somebody else. And it's like for 5K. And it's like at that point you start, saying that, it's like, is it even worth dealing with the hassle of changing jobs when you don't really know who's honest about the role, right? Who's honest about needing somebody? Are you just doing this as an exercise? Or do you really want to fill the position? Especially when you deal with contractors, right? You can have somebody who wants $40 an hour to come in as a Windows Server admin, and he has all the experience that the organization needs. But there's somebody that's willing to come in for 32 bucks, right?
Mm,
And so what happens is that contractor is like, well, here's the bill rate. We can keep a little bit more money, and we'll send this person who has half the experience over there. Well, they're not looking out for that company's interest because the company is going to get a lesser candidate even though the bill rate is not even something that's changing on their end. They're going to have the same bill rate. So it's all about that middleman that's actually, placing people that's actually, spoiling that whole situation. And
going
so,
through recruiters,
yeah,
like third party recruiters.
it's tough because they all have different, it's all profit, right? So if you can save 5K, I had 5K is $10,000 a year. I mean, just knew the number off the top of their head. Like, like, oh yeah, that really matters to you. I can tell. Right.
Yeah.
And so what's funny is that they'll block your path, but if you have somebody who works at that place, you give them your resume, the resume goes to the hiring manager says, get this person in here right now.
Yep.
And so you realize that there was a disconnect between what the staffing agencies are doing and what the hiring manager wants. And so that's tough, right? Because then you end up in that place and now you're like, well, who do I trust?
Yep. Yeah, I got a good friend that a staffing agency got him hired at my place, that's where we met and everything. And I mean, they got him so much lower than what he should have been at. And it's not just like me saying like, "Oh, he should have been making more money." It's like, no, the VP of the company literally said it is laughable of what they're paying you. When you get converted, you're gonna get what you should have gotten. Like,
Yeah.
it was a very small company, like we were like a family. So, that's how we were all treated and they took good care of us and everything. And it was just like, you know, that's when I kind of like realized, oh, wait a minute. Like, that's where they're making the money, like they're selling us for much cheaper and they have their own rate. And then they're taking the difference and putting that in their pocket while I'm over here like struggling because I don't have any benefits. And, like, and they'll always be like, oh, yeah, we got benefits for our staffing agency and they're pretty good and everything. It's like, man, come on.
Well, they'll buy you a sandwich. They'll come
I
in
mean,
every three
yeah,
months and buy you a sandwich.
you, I've been taken for some really nice steaks by recruiters and everything. I've been, to those events. I've been to those dinners and lunches, and I've gotten blackout drunk, with these recruiters just trying to do anything that they possibly can to get my business. And it's still not worth it, in my
Well, I
opinion.
mean, yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
I'm talking about once you actually are on their payroll. And
okay,
that's their follow-up, right? Their follow-up is
okay,
that, yeah, we placed this guy, we're here, he's kicking butt, we're getting all these great positive feedback from you, the
I gotcha.
managers there and all that. And all they do is come in like once a quarter and they have a pizza thing for everybody they
Right,
staff there. And it's like,
right.
I could buy my own damn pizza if you pay me.
I mean, good recruiters will buy you lunch, at least once a week. Good staffing firms. I mean, I was a place where it was literally, you know, once a week. One, they took us out for drinks. Two, they bought us lunch at least one day a week, and then three, one day a week they brought us breakfast. I mean, like that was just what was expected because we did so much business with them. It was insane. Like we weren't even posting positions publicly anymore. Like it was just like to them, it's like, all right, you got 30 days. If you don't find someone in 30 days, we post it publicly. Like it was a challenge for them, and they
Hmm.
had a lot of reward for it. It's nothing bad. Like I'm not bashing recruiters. Like I've needed recruiters throughout my career, and there's good ones and there's bad ones.
Yep.
But there's always something to keep in mind, right? Like the number that the number that you're getting paid, the number that was agreed to pay you is far lower than what they would have paid you if you got in directly. And that's just plain and simple. That's how the recruiters have to make their money. That's nothing against them, but I think something, that you kind of mentioned earlier was that you had that goal of going to Colorado and your plan changed a lot. And what I've seen with people that I've known some of these people, since grade school. Literally, like I still stay in contact with some of those people. And I think the thing that really separates people that are more successful than others is that they'll have the same goal and the plan or the process will change 100 times. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many times it has to change or modify or morph. The goal stays the same. And over time, you're going to get that goal. Like I said before, I had a goal of becoming, a security engineer or getting into cybersecurity. And it took me 2.5 years to get there. Well, my goal was the same in my head. From the beginning, the process was all right. Well, I'm going to get the security plus. Someone's going to hire me as a security analyst. A couple years, I'll get promoted to security engineer. No, it didn't happen like that at all. Like I wish it happened like that. Like I got the security plus, and then 2 years later, I got into security. Like, you know, but my goal stayed the same, and I think that that is really, really key for for anyone to be successful, really in any field in anything. Um, Set a goal, set a realistic goal, even set a deadline on it, and don't be afraid to move that deadline. But you you just have to make it up in your mind that no matter what, no matter what, I'm hitting this goal. It doesn't matter what I have to do, doesn't matter where I have to go. Maybe I have to move to hit my goal, right? Like if it's worth it to you, if it's meaningful to you, you should go for it. You only have one life to live. And so, you know, if you end up like not taking a job at IBM because they want you to move to Dallas and you don't want to move to Dallas, but going to IBM is like a career defining move, maybe not necessarily anymore necessarily, but it's just, an example, right? Like maybe making that move is a career defining thing, but you have to move from Chicago to Texas. You don't know anyone in Texas. You're uprooting everything that you knew to go there to go and chase your dream of being successful in this career, and that IBM role is going to take you there. Then do it. Like
Yeah.
it- I mean my great grandpa always told us, because he came over here from like Ireland, I think it was. I mean, he was like, I came here and my only goal was getting to America. My
Hmm.
only goal. and it didn't matter what it took to get here. It just simply didn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, and he said it was all worth it in the end, obviously. Like, our family is here, our family exists. He got married and everything because he came here.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to set a goal and move that goal if you have to. Moving it isn't failure. It's only failure if you stop going for it.
Yep.
And the people that I have seen that stop going after their goal are the ones that fail, are the ones that are less successful, are the ones that are stuck in that job for 10 years, that are just complacent with it, that are, like what you described before, afraid to death to lose that job. Those are the people that stop moving the goals, that are stop making goals. I make my goals first 2 weeks of January every year. Every year I hit my goals no matter what. And if I don't, then those goals get moved over to the next year because maybe there was something more to them that I didn't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, an organization is not going to sit on their capital and say,
Right.
well, let's just let it hang here and not earn us any interest. A company is taking every single opportunity they can to figure out how to grow, right? So if you're there and you're being complacent, if you got
Yeah.
comfortable, just imagine what that company would do if they knew that they can get a better return in your position with someone else.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're not going to pull up a big whiteboard and do some equation that says that, hey, we can get 20% more productivity from person X, over Jamie, but we like Jamie, so keep him around. Now if you have a good relationship with your manager, then maybe he can run some interference, and maybe he can tell the stories up to senior management about why they need to keep Jamie, because Jamie brings, team morale, you know but it's going to be difficult, right, for you to to honestly be in a situation in which, if a company has to lay people off, if they have to reduce their workforce because the economy slowed down, or they need to increase their operating margins, and they want to get more net profit and all this stuff. Well, they're going to look at each person and they're going to make a determination of who needs to be cut. And if you're comfortable, I don't think that they're going to look at you being comfortable as a reason not to let you go. And
Right.
s- and and
Oh, he's too comfortable here. We gotta keep him.
s- so there should always be a little bit of a hint of stay sharp or stay ready. So keep your resume up to date, right? Every couple of months, right? Just make sure that that it's up to date, that it is incorporating your latest activities and your tasks and your duties and all that. See what's out there. See what the new job roles look like, right? Network administrator used to look like this. Well, what does it look like now? Does it have, different technologies that's being expected at a baseline? What does cybersecurity look now? At first it was the castle remote, defense system and all of that, but now it might be more focused on software development lifecycle security and application security and API and cloud security. And then, like Joe said, it's going to go to uh,
AI.
AI security and robotic process automation security. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see a shift in the marketplace where people are starting to automate as much as possible. They're going to automate out the people. They're going to figure out what you do on a day-to-day basis. They're going
Yep.
to map your processes, your button clicks. They're going to figure out everything you do with that machine, that computer. And then they're going to create a robot, a bot, a service account bot that's going to perform all of your activities 24/7, 1,000 times an hour. Never has to go on vacation, never has to
Doesn't
go to the
complain.
never has to go to the restroom, doesn't ask for a raise. And when that happens, there's going to be a shift. And so you have to understand that, well, a lot of times you got to make what you got to make now before there's a paradigm shift. And then you
Yep.
realize that, well, you know what? Those people who used to work at Blockbusters, they probably were very good at customer service. But guess who got better customer service? Netflix, right? And so that whole like that whole idea of that business model disappeared because of technology being a disruptor. And so if you work in technology, if you work in IT, if you work in cybersecurity, then your best bet is right now is to get as much as you can, move as quickly as you can, because eventually they're going to outsource everybody. They're talking about having, mechanical arms perform surgery, right? I've seen a video of an arm that is cutting open the skin of a grape and then sewing it back up,
Oh yeah, I've
right?
seen that. That's scary, man.
So who knows what this looks like in 20, 30 years, right? They may be able to cut 30, 40% of the doctors that perform surgery because they're moving to a more mechanical based systems. Um, and so, you may think that that's a job that's going to always be around and always be in high demand, but they're always looking to cut costs. They're always looking to increase their profit. And so if that means that you're taking that 2, 3 year, you know, cadence when it comes to getting your job because you want to make enough so you can be financially independent when you're 55 and don't have to work till you're 75, then do it. Right. Because, you got to strike while the iron's hot in a lot of situations. And this is not the doomsday anything. This is just reality. Right.
Yeah.
And I would love it if this was the Star Trek universe where they can just, holodeck everything and create everything from a transporter or a different mechanism, but it's not the way it is. So while you got an opportunity, get in there and work and get what you can. And if the job isn't working out, sometimes you have to take that somewhere else and get what you can.
Complacency kills. It's just as simple as that. When you get complacent, you get all comfortable, you get weaker as a human. You just simply do when you're not getting challenged and
Hmm.
um when you're not when you're not getting challenged and when you get all complacent with wherever you are. And I just I try to get as far away from that as I possibly can. That's probably why I like running so much, is because I really, really, really hate running while I'm running.
Yeah.
It's it's so difficult, man. It's like the hardest thing for me, at least. But like it keeps me a little bit harder, right? Like it keeps me not complacent. And so I try to do things in my life that force me to grow. And maybe you're going into a new role and you don't know how you're going to do the role. You don't know maybe 50% of what that role entails. You know, go into it, man. Go into it and learn. Like when you hired me, Derek, I didn't know any of the tools that I was going to be using. I didn't know any of them, but I learned them all,
Yeah.
and I learned them pretty quick, as you experienced. Like I learned them pretty quick.
Yep. Yep.
So don't let that hold you back. Don't let someone telling you that there's too much of a gap here to hold you back. If they're going to give you the opportunity, take it and run with it and prove them wrong. If they didn't think that you'd last, prove them wrong. They didn't think that you'd excel, prove them wrong. But don't be afraid to make that jump to better yourself, to make more money, to get more skills, to hit your goals.
And we probably going to have a show about the imposter syndrome.
I mean, we could go for another 4 hours on this topic.
Yeah, but I mean, like, don't be complacent and don't be afraid. That you're going to have positions in which you think that this is over my head. What it's
Yeah.
supposed to be over your head. You're supposed to grow into that position, and then you learn it, and then you surpass it, and then you move maybe into another position, or you can stay in that position. It depends. But yeah, I hear a lot of people who say they have imposter syndrome, and it really, they don't feel like they. I'm like, hey man, hell, we all imposters. I mean, can you imagine human beings being created from whatever it is? If you believe in divinity, if you believe it was a single cell organism coming from a comet, whatever it is you believe that got us here, do you really believe that we were put here to install Microsoft Word? on computers? Like, I'm just saying, right? Like, do you really think that we're here to support information technology? Like that was the impetus of the
Yeah,
creation of human beings, right? So, like, find whatever piece you can and get on with it because I can guarantee you that the universe and the world isn't sitting here and it isn't waiting on you to understand that you know what when you get your one chance, your one shot, you take it and you take it as far as you
yeah,
can go. And the best thing you can do for yourself is, you get old, you start passing away, just don't have that many regrets, right?
right.
No, just try to have as few regrets as possible.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Try to have no regrets. You know, leave it all on the table. Leave it all out there.
Agreed.
Yep. Well, I mean, this was a good, solid episode. I mean, we should probably revisit this. I mean, we didn't even. I mean, we could easily go another couple hours, man.
This is people going to be changing jobs. That is one thing that's going to be consistent, and they're going to be changing them for different reasons. And so we're going to have to revisit it because again, in the future, it may be a whole different reason why people are, changing jobs or need to keep moving. So I definitely
Right.
think that we should, probably keep a cadence with this.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening. You guys have been great. The support for this podcast is I mean, it's pretty insane.
Definitely
We're trying to kind of like get caught up to the popularity of it. And so please, comment, please feel free to hit us up directly. If we haven't touched on a topic that you want us to touch on, please let us know. We will gladly talk about it. I'll talk about it forever. So please, reach out, please share the podcast, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, all that sort of stuff. All, all of it helps us out tremendously. And we are trying to, build out this whole process and everything behind the scenes for you guys. So thanks for listening, guys. Hope you have a great week. See you.